Discover the amazing moment when a poor nanny comforted a terrified girl. Unveiling and incredible. Sarah was desperate as she rushed through the last minutes of her shift at the diner, the storm outside booming in tandem with her racing thoughts. If only she could work her fingers to the bone, just to keep her daughter, Emily, safe and fed, it would be worth it. She wiped down the counter, feeling the weight of 2 jobs pressing down on her shoulders like the storm clouds blanketing Texas. On top of everything, she couldn't help but worry about Emily's anxiety during storms, those big brown eyes filling with fear every time thunder rolled in. Desperation tinged her heart like a dark cloud as she considered hiring Maria, the undocumented nanny. Could she take that risk? The moment she agreed, a mix of relief and unease washed over her. Maria needed work, and Sarah needed help. Maybe they could be a lifeline for each other. But as lightning lit up the diner's windows, her heart sank with the realization that Maria's immigration status could lead to repercussions. Was she becoming someone who disregarded rules for the sake of survival? What if people found out? As rain pounded harder, Sarah clocked out and raced home, her stomach knotted tight. She could already visualize Emily trembling on their worn sofa, overwhelmed by the storm's ferocity. Unlocking the door, she braced herself for the encounter, only to witness the tender scene taking place. Maria had knelt beside Emily, whose small hands shook in fear. With an ease that surprised Sarah, Maria was weaving tales of courage, her voice soothing as if she'd done it 1,000 times before. A chill crept down Sarah's spine. Was she doing the right thing, or had she just invited trouble into her child's life? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As she stood there, tension coiling tighter in her chest, Sarah grappled with a duality of emotions battling within her. Guilt clashed with admiration as she watched Emily lean into Maria's warmth, that genuine laughter ringing like chimes through the storm's chaos. What had she done? Was this nanny, with her unresolved status, now the crutch her daughter clung to? The laughter hurt like a knife, each giggle a weight on Sarah's heart. How could she integrate Maria into their lives when the world had taught her to be wary of those like her? A tempest of dread engulfed Sarah, not just about Maria's past, but about the choice she had to make moving forward. She'd shaped her daughter's morals around loyalty and kindness, yet the idea of welcoming someone deemed illegal into their home made her skin crawl. With a shaky breath, she clung to the frame of the doorway, her heartbeat sinking with the storm outside. Was her desire for a brighter future worth risking everything they'd built? Finally, the storm's last raindrops fell, an eerie calm settling in. Yet within Sarah, the storm raged harder, thoughts spiraling as she faced the reality of what lay ahead. Would she confront Maria and disrupt this newfound bond? Or would she allow fear to dictate a decision that could strangle the spirit of the solace Emily had just begun to embrace? Each moment passed like a weight upon her chest, pressing down, leaving her hanging on the edge of an unseen precipice. Doubt shadowed Sarah as she walked into the living room, the remnants of the storm fading away like an echo. Maria caught sight of her, quickly standing up and brushing her hands against her jeans, her expression shifting from jovial to cautious. A heavy silence hung between them, thick with the unsaid. In that moment, a wave of protectiveness surged through Sarah, mixed with an undeniable urge to keep her daughter's newfound joy alive. But which choice would serve Emily best? "Hi, Sarah." The thunder scared her, but I think I managed to help, Maria said softly, her tone genuine, yet tinged with the unease that had settled in the room. Keeping her voice steady, Sarah replied, "I need to talk to you." The words quivered in the air, heavy with the weight of her conflicting emotions. After a brief pause, Maria nodded, stepping closer to the kitchen, her nervous energy palpable. It was as if they were both reluctant players in a game of revelation, forced to confront a tension that had blossomed in silence. Sarah knew it was time to articulate her fears, but the thought of hurting Emily by questioning Maria felt like a betrayal. "Emily seems to really like you," she began, choosing her words carefully. "But I can't ignore the fact that letting you stay is a risk for both of us." The swell of anxiety in her chest threatened to spill over. Maria's expression hardened for a brief moment before softening. "I understand. You're worried about my situation, but I promise I'm here to support you both. I need this job, and I care for Emily. I really do." The sincerity in Maria's voice struck a chord within Sarah, tugging at the part of her that longed to believe in the good of people. She couldn't shake the feeling of being trapped, torn between practicality and compassion. Each option felt like a slippery slope, offering little assurance of safety. "Maria, I'm not just worried about you. I'm worried about what people might think. What if someone finds out you're undocumented? It could lead to trouble we can't afford," Sarah admitted, her voice trembling with uncertainty. Maria stood in silence for a moment, her eyes steady yet sorrowful. "I get it. I've faced trouble before. But I'm dedicated to this work. I want to help, and I promise nothing will go wrong." Yet Sarah's face reflected her struggle to trust. She remained contemplative, grappling with the instinct to protect and the desire to seek help. Images of Emily's frightened face returned with a vengeance, battling with thoughts of consequences. Was it fair to deny her child the nurturing companionship Maria provided? Or would she endanger everything for the sake of an uncertain future? Each possibility swirled chaotically in her mind, diverging paths that would shape their lives irrevocably. "I have to think this through," Sarah finally said, shaking her head. "It's not just about me anymore." "Of course," Maria replied, her composure fragile but intact. "I want to earn your trust. I'll work harder, if that helps." The door behind them creaked on its hinges, as if symbolizing the threshold Sarah stood at. In that moment, she felt the cool draft brushing against her skin, urging her to decide. With the tension suspended in the air, Sarah's heart thudded in her chest. There had to be a way to honor her instincts while giving Emily the stability she desperately needed. The thought nagged at her, igniting a familiar fire within, but as Sarah looked at Maria, reflecting on the unspoken bond forged amidst the storm, she realized that confronting her fears would demand more than just choices or words. It would require a reckoning with her own insecurities that in the flickering light of the dim kitchen. A realization loomed just beyond reach. Could she redefine her understanding of safety and courage? Just as that question settled in, a new inquiry bubbled up. What else had she underestimated about life's unpredictable journey? The moment of truth beckoned, her resolve strengthening as she took a step closer to Maria, the horizon of possibilities stretching before her. Sarah stood at the precipice of a decision that felt as heavy as the storm clouds that had just cleared. The flickering kitchen light illuminated the uncertainty in her heart, exposing the deep fissures of doubt that had formed through years of struggle. Each option loomed like an unscalable mountain. The trust she had to place in Maria felt both necessary and perilous. That in the silence, Sarah examined her own motivations. Was this about protecting Emily, or was it really about her own fears? The question gnawed at her. Hadn't she spent enough time worried about what others might think? The weight of societal judgment had often kept her from making bold choices, from pursuing her own dreams. Here was another instance, one where her hesitation might cost her daughter the comfort of care she needed. Maybe I'm projecting my fears onto Emily, she thought, her mind racing through possibilities. She had always been the wall between help and danger, but perhaps it had become more of a barrier than a shield. The idea of letting go terrified her, yet the instinct to embrace newfound connections ignited a spark within. "Can I trust you, Maria?" she asked suddenly, the words spilling out unguarded. It surprised Sarah how the question felt more like a confession, revealing her own insecurities. Maria met her gaze with genuine intensity. "You can," she replied, taking a step forward, her voice firm. "I know I'm a stranger in your home, but I want to show you what I can offer. You deserve support." She had so much to lose, but the thought of Emily spending more time wrapped in uncertainty weighed heavier. In that moment of clarity, Sarah realized she had underestimated her own desire for companionship. not merely for herself, but for Emily's enrichment. What if she could step outside her tight-held principles, forge a new pathway for them, and embrace the unknown, deciding to strike a balance required deep introspection about what she truly valued? Was Emily's growth more important than the comfort of familiarity? Sarah envisioned the laughter they could share, the way Maria's gentle spirit might add light to their home. What would be the first step? Sarah asked, her voice steadier now, tinged with determination. Let us formulate a plan, Maria suggested, her demeanor brightening. I will work part-time until I can prove my worth, and we can set boundaries together, ensuring we're safe. I'll also help with Emily's studies. I'm quite good in math and science. The offer surprised Sarah. She hadn't thought about the educational advantages Maria might bring. New possibilities unfolded in her mind, overlapping with the confirmed fears. It was a double-edged sword. What if it worked? What if it didn't? That buzzing uncertainty in her head spiraled as she envisioned Maria guiding Emily through her homework, laughing together, the two of them ecstatic over their victories. As she continued to mull it over, Sarah's heart shifted, feeling lighter than it had in weeks. The more she considered Maria's proposal, the more the walls appeared to be falling. Was this the encouragement she craved? Let us give it a shot then, Sarah said with a deep breath, both fear and hope intertwining within her voice. We can start small. Maria beamed, a mix of relief and gratitude washing over her features, but when Sarah saw the glimmer of hope amid their challenges, her heart felt just a little more resolute. Yet with the dawn of this new alliance, an unsettling thought remained: what external forces might challenge their fragile trust? What dangers lay beyond her front door, lurking unseen? As the shadows of uncertainty enveloped her again, Sarah felt the urgency of confronting those questions. The decision she made today would pave the way not just for Emily's immediate comfort but would ripple through the contours of their lives in ways she had yet to fathom. The moment hung heavily in the air, a turning point calling her forward into uncharted territory. Where, she wondered, would this new path lead them? And as her resolve crystallized into action, a lingering question echoed in her mind: could she reconcile the past while embracing a future that felt both promising and perilous at the same time? The sunlight filtered through the kitchen window, pouring warmth into the room as a new day began. For Sarah, it was both a fresh start and a daunting challenge. She sat at the small kitchen table, a steaming cup of coffee in hand, contemplating the decision she had made with Maria. Each sip was a reminder that change was brewing, and with it, the potential for both growth and conflict. At that moment, Sarah's thoughts drifted to Emily. How would their lives intertwine with Maria? Could she really trust this newcomer to foster an environment where Emily could thrive without falling prey to the dangers Sarah always feared? It was a precarious balancing act, one that required more than just surface-level trust. Her own emotional conditioning had made her guarded, yet the shimmering possibility of connection began to tug at her heartstrings. As the day unfolded, Maria settled into her role, initially navigating the routine with tentative footsteps. Yet, there was an undeniable spark in her interactions with Emily. Sarah observed them diligently working on math problems together in the corner of the living room. The laughter resonating from that space, warm and unforced, was a melody Sarah had longed to hear, a sound that suggested positive change. But despite the burgeoning joy within the atmosphere, the shadow of doubt persisted. Can she really help? Sarah silently questioned, her heart jarring between hope and doubt as she scrutinized Maria's progress. She couldn't shake the feeling of being an imposter in her own life, showcasing fragility even amidst newfound possibilities. This mindset had persisted since the tumultuous aftermath of her husband's departure, and it clung to her like a second skin. Later that evening, as she tucked Emily into bed, Sarah could feel the shift in their household. She had hesitated to let anyone inside her carefully constructed walls, yet here Maria was, weaving a new fabric of support. Realizing that the initial friction in letting someone new into their lives could lead to liberation was a daunting yet exhilarating revelation. But with this growth came an imminent need for confrontation and uncomfortable necessity to assess her own insecurities. The realization echoed in her mind: she could either cling to her fears or dare to face them. With this understanding, Sarah sat down at the table, pulling out a pen and paper, her fingers hovering over the blank page. Her heart raced as she penned a list of goals, both for herself and Emily. This tiny act felt monumental. It was less about what Maria could do and more about what Sarah was willing to relinquish, her fears, her hesitations, and her longing for control. This list was a commitment to growth, requiring her to face the monsters that had terrorized her for so long, the ones telling her she wasn't enough, she couldn't handle change, and that opening up was a foolish gambit. However, as Sarah climbed this ladder of personal growth, a torrent of questions rushed through her mind. Would Maria's involvement alter the delicate dynamics they had established? Would Emily grow too attached, complicating things further if Maria were ever to leave? How could she prepare for everything that might unravel as this new thread wove through their lives? These questions crystallized into a singular, urgent thought: it was time to confront Maria directly. The undercurrents of uncertainty called for dialogue, clarity, and perhaps even vulnerability. The next morning, Sarah planned to approach Maria with honesty, to express her fears and expectations. She would be bold, and in that boldness, she understood she would discover yet another dimension of herself that had been dormant for too long. With resolve swelling inside her, the stakes had never felt higher, nor the outcomes more uncertain. What truths lurked beneath the surface of her budding alliance? And as she prepared for their discussion, a new fear seized her. Could Maria handle the complexities of her reality, or would the test expose cracks in their fragile bond? Sarah woke with the dawn, her mind buzzed with anticipation and trepidation. The morning light poured through the kitchen window, illuminating the cluttered table where her to-do list sat like a mountain yet to be scaled. Today would be the day she confronted Maria, an act that terrified her for reasons she couldn't quite pin down. Would laying bare her insecurities bring them closer, or would it fracture the fragile trust they had begun to build? As she poured herself another cup of coffee, her fingers grazed the edges of the paper. Each goal she had jotted down felt like a small piece of armor. This wasn't merely a list, it was a manifestation of her resolve to face life's challenges head-on, as daunting as that felt. The very act of writing awakened a long-dormant sense of agency within her. Could this be the moment where she finally shed her skin of self-doubt? The kitchen was unusually quiet, save for the rhythmic sound of the drip coffee maker. Emily was still asleep, but the weight of her future lay heavy on Sarah's shoulders. What would happen if she let Maria in too far? Would she be risking Emily's heart, and her own? With a deep breath, Sarah pushed those thoughts aside. It was time to shift her focus from fear to clarity. With a plan forming in her mind, she envisioned how their conversation would flow. She would start by voicing her appreciation for Maria's presence. After all, Maria had brought energy and a fresh perspective into their home, a stark contrast to the isolation Sarah had felt for so long. Later that morning, Sarah found Maria in the living room, a stack of books nestled beside her on the couch. The image of Emily curled up, absorbed in a story, tugged at Sarah's heart in ways she had nearly forgotten. But she had to steady those emotions. Today was not about softness. It was about truth. "Hey, Maria," Sarah began, her voice steady despite the simmering nerves. Maria looked up, her expression responsive yet uncertain. "Can we talk for a moment?" "Of course. What's on your mind?" Maria shifted her position, her attention fully on Sarah. As Sarah launched into her carefully crafted statements, she felt a wave of vulnerability wash over her. "I want to start by saying thank you for everything you've done for Emily and for me. It means a lot," she spoke, taking a moment to gauge Maria's reaction. Maria smiled warmly, but Sarah could see a flicker of curiosity behind her eyes. "The thing is, I've been hesitant to let anyone into our lives. You probably sensed that." "Honestly, yeah. I could see you were a bit guarded," Maria admitted, not backing down from the honesty. "So here's the deal," Sarah continued, her voice firming. "I need to let go of some of that fear and trust you in this journey with us. But I have to share that a part of me is terrified of what might happen if we grow too close." A heavy pause settled between them, laden with both trepidation and understanding. It was a pivotal moment, the kind Sarah had been yearning for, a moment filled with the potential for deeper connection. "Sarah, I understand that fear," Maria finally responded, her voice measured and calm. "But trust is not something to rush into. I'm here for the long haul, and I want you to feel safe in that." Sarah felt the constriction of her chest ease slightly, clarity blending with hope. For the first time in years, she envisioned a version of herself unshackled by fear, one that didn't flinch from building relationships. Yet, as they continued sharing their thoughts about Emily, about their expectations, about their respective fears, an unsettling realization began to creep into Sarah's mind. This burgeoning connection, as comforting as it felt, also threatened the ethereal walls she had built around herself. What if Maria's words carried a truth that Sarah hadn't yet reconciled? What if she really could change? With uncharted territory before her, uncertainty gnawed at Sarah's resolve. Could she stand firm in this newfound courage, or would it slip through her fingers just as it had done so many times before? The conversation swirled to an abrupt halt as haunting echoes of her past resurfaced, past failures, dashed hopes. Feeling a raw urgency surface, she met Maria's gaze with determination. "I think we need to redefine some boundaries," she said, her tone suddenly sharper. "This is about both of us feeling safe, right?" Maria nodded, likely sensing the shift. But along with this shift, Sarah realized, came the need for choices far more profound than mere words. Would she allow herself to grow alongside Maria, or retreat to the confines of her fears? The stakes were higher than ever, and as an unsettling tension unfurled. This new chapter would require both boldness and sacrifice. Where would that leave Sarah and Emily? In that moment, a stark question emerged, leaving Sarah breathless. What would she discover about herself by peeling back those layers? Uncharted challenges loomed ahead, but the flicker of determination sparked within her. She would confront whatever lay ahead, no matter how daunting it seemed. And as they sat in that shared silence, another question burrowed its way into her mind, ready to reshape her journey. How far would she really go to seize the life she had nearly given up on? Sarah was struck by the magnitude of her decision as she left Maria in the living room, the air thick with a mixture of vulnerability and determination. Each step toward her room felt both liberating and burdensome, as though she were shedding layers of old skin. There, in the sanctuary of her thoughts, she could finally examine the complexities of her own fears. As she sat on the edge of her bed, her hands clasped tightly, it dawned on her that this journey was not simply about Maria. It was a reflection of everything she had tucked away, memories of heartbreak, loss, and countless times when she had backed away from a chance at connection. This self-confrontation was not merely a conversation with Maria, it was a reckoning. Emboldened, Sarah allowed her mind to race through all her insecurities. What had she told herself for years? That she wasn't enough, that her past defined her future, that she would somehow hurt Emily by failing to protect her heart. These thoughts were chains, and today she felt the first gentle clicks of those bonds being loosened. She took a moment to breathe, steadying the emotional tide threatening to pull her under. The realization gripped her: the only way to build a legitimate connection was to dismantle the preconceived ideas she had about intimacy. Slowly but surely, she understood that true safety lay not in isolation, but in the willingness to be seen, imperfections and all. Sarah arose from the bed, fueled by a resolve to voice her thoughts. She reached for her planner, committed to charting the path ahead. Each item she penned down symbolized a step toward overcoming her irrational fear of vulnerability. First, she would extend another invitation to Maria, not just as a nanny, but as a confidant, to truly share their stories, their insecurities, and visions for the future. Secondly, she would also reach out to Emily. She had often avoided the deeper conversations her daughter craved, convinced that keeping her shielded would protect her more than openness ever could. It was time to change that narrative, but lurking beneath this actionable plan was another emerging fear. What if this newfound bravery led to an even greater pain? The stakes felt monumental. Exposing oneself left one open to potential heartache. Gazing out of the window, Sarah spotted Emily playing in the yard, her laughter ringing out, innocent and carefree. In that moment, an unwavering instinct flared within Sarah, a desire to provide a safe space where not just Emily, but also she and Maria could freely share their lives' burdens. As she reflected, she began to see that the act of extending trust could itself become a profound lesson for Emily. What a gift it would be for her daughter to witness the strength that lay in vulnerability. With each passing moment, Sarah fortified her determination. Today was not just about confrontation, it was about healing. She resolved to let her fears guide her instead of constrain her. The bonds of trust she sought to weave could evolve into something beautiful not just with Maria, but with herself. Feeling emboldened, Sarah walked back to the living room, ready to invite Maria into a deeper dialogue. However, as she approached, she saw not just Maria but the unwritten chapters of her life still waiting to unfold. "Maria," she called softly, the hint of excitement mingling with her apprehension. But just as their conversation was set to deepen, a loud crash echoed from the kitchen. Time froze as Sarah's heart dropped. What had happened? Emily? Maria? In an instant, all of Sarah's plans hung in precarious balance as she hurried toward the kitchen, the weight of her intentions shadowed by a sudden urgency. Would this unexpected interruption derail her newfound strength, or would it propel her into an unforeseen confrontation with her fears? As Sarah approached the kitchen, 1,000 scenarios played out in her mind, each one worse than the last. Had Emily fallen? Had the glass jar shattering broken something more than just pottery? The aroma of an overcooked meal hung in the air, intensifying her sense of urgency. She entered the room with a trembling heart, ready to confront whatever disaster lay ahead. The sight that greeted her was both a relief and a shock. Emily stood frozen, eyes wide, a broken plate at her feet. A second later, Sarah's gaze shifted to Maria, kneeling beside the wreckage, gathering scattered shards with hands that moved deftly yet nervously. A cloud of tension filled the space between them. "Are you okay?" Sarah's voice emerged steadier than she felt. Emily nodded, her face flushed with a mix of fear and embarrassment, and yet there was a flicker of resilience shining through. Maria looked up, catching Sarah's eye, the moment stretching timelessly between them. There was an unspoken connection in that look, a shared responsibility, an acknowledgement of how swiftly chaos can disrupt the fragile balance they were trying to establish. "Just a little accident," Maria said lightly, her tone careful but reinforced with an air of professionalism. Yet, Sarah could feel the weight in her eyes too, echoing her own fears about what it meant to take risks. As she knelt down beside them, Sarah felt an impulse to comfort, not just her daughter, but Maria as well. "It happens," she said, her palms brushing against the cool tile floor. "Life can throw us these small surprises." It was a small moment, but a significant one, nurturing the compassion within needed to hold their collective fears together. Emily, having an innate gift for sensing emotions, took a step closer to Maria. "I can help clean up," she declared, her youthful resolve shining. Together, the two girls gathered the pieces, the tension slowly transforming into a collaborative effort. As they worked, Sarah marveled at the unexpected lesson unfolding before her. Emily was not just a child wondering about her mother, she was beginning to embody the very openness Sarah wanted to cultivate. Watching them interact, Sarah made a silent promise to herself. She would take the plunge into vulnerability and create an atmosphere where mistakes were met with understanding and support. It wasn't just about her and Maria, it involved nurturing a bond of trust that would extend to Emily as well. Once they cleaned up, Sarah reclaimed her previous ambition, now displaying a newfound sense of clarity. "Maria," she said, gesturing for her to sit at the table. "I think we should have that talk." The urgency that had clouded her intentions only moments ago was now infused with a purposeful warmth. "Absolutely," Maria replied softly, her demeanor shifting from the chaos to the calm of shared understanding. As they settled around the kitchen table, Sarah could feel the collective need to peel back the layers, to unveil truths they'd long buried. Anxiety still prickled at her edges, but today was different. The stakes had transformed from fear of exposure to a driving desire for connection. "Let us share our stories," Sarah proposed. "I want us to feel comfortable enough to be honest with each other. About everything, our fears, our dreams." Just as Maria nodded, a fleeting shadow crossed Sarah's mind. What if their shares revealed hidden truths that shifted the fundamental dynamics between the three of them? What if the act of exposing herself not only unmasked her imperfections but also sparked conflict? But the moment to dwell in doubt passed. Maria leaned in, an inviting smile on her face, ready to share. The room felt charged, a palpable anticipation settling around them, ensuring that whatever lay ahead would not be easy but transformative, and suddenly, the weight of her fear transformed into the thrill of promises waiting to be explored. Would they uncover fragments from their pasts that could bond them more closely than they ever expected? As Sarah began to speak, each word resonating with her commitment, she could sense that this moment was just the beginning. What would they discover about one another, and how might each revelation reshape their emerging connections? The deeper truth was out there, waiting to be unveiled. Would they courageously step into the unfamiliar territory of vulnerability together, or would the past hold them captive? The conversation was poised on the precipice of revelation, and Sarah could feel the electric thrill of possibility in the air. As Sarah took a deep breath, she felt the weight of their collective vulnerability pressing in. It was a quiet moment, yet potent with promise, a crucible where their lives could potentially intersect in deeper ways. Her eyes scanned the room, noticing small details that suddenly seemed larger than life: the worn-out placemats, the half-empty pot of spaghetti on the stove, and Emily's small hands still lingering over the remnants of the broken plate. "Okay," she started, deliberately choosing her words as she developed a narrative in her mind. "I'll go first." Her voice wavered slightly, betraying the well of emotion she was ready to reveal. She felt exposed yet emboldened, a tug of excitement laced with anxiety tightening in her chest. "I've had my share of mistakes, and for a long time, I thought they defined me. There was a time I feared judgment, tried to mold myself perfectly into what I thought everyone expected." She paused, keenly aware of the weight of her confession. "But those mistakes, they became my teachers." Emily leaned in slightly, the initial apprehension in her eyes replaced with a semblance of understanding. Maria's gaze remained steady, encouraging Sarah to continue. This was the exchange they all longed for, an undeniable intimacy forming through shared experiences. The air thickened with anticipation, a silent pact developing among them. "I remember when I failed a critical project at work. I put in the hours, sacrificed my personal time, and still didn't meet the expectations." Each word fell from her lips like soot from an extinguished flame, painful yet liberating. "Instead of learning from it, I let it consume me. I was so afraid of the failure that I avoided new challenges. I stifled my own growth." The moment felt surreal, yet Sarah could sense the catharsis blossoming. Each vulnerability shared stripped a layer of pretense from their dynamic. "In the process, I lost a part of myself. That's when I realized that true strength lies in how we confront our failures, not in avoiding them." An unexpected quiet hung in the air. Sarah's heart raced. Would they understand? Would this prompt Maria to share her own struggles? An exhale that felt too heavy filled the space until finally, Maria spoke. "I get that. Failure can be isolating, can't it? In my previous role, I faced significant challenges. I envisioned myself as a leader, someone to inspire others, but my tendency to second-guess myself often undermined my authority." Sarah sensed Maria's hesitation. It was as if the very act of revealing her own setbacks felt like peering into an abyss. "I lost opportunities because I was afraid of not being enough. I couldn't find the balance between confidence and humility." The exchange felt like a concurrent awakening. Each sentiment shared was a thread weaving them closer, pushing them toward uncharted territory. Realization dawned on Sarah: their insecurities were universal, binding them in unprecedented ways that had previously been encumbered by silence. Encouraged, she nudged towards Emily. "What about you? Everyone has something they're afraid of. It doesn't have to be big, just a fear that feels present." Eyes darting away momentarily, Emily shifted in her seat. "I'm scared of disappointing you," she admitted, her voice dissolving to a near whisper, yet lilting with brave honesty. Heat rushed to Sarah's cheeks, the sincerity struck her like a thunderbolt. Having her daughter's candid fear exposed an intimate connection, one that blossomed into deeper trust. Sweetheart, Sarah said, cherishing the moment of vulnerability. You could never disappoint me. Mistakes are part of learning, and I want us to be okay with them. To know we're all in this together. There was a pulse in the atmosphere, a shared understanding fusing between them. Each revelation crafted bonds they never thought possible, but just as that connection solidified, a question lingered flickering at the peripheral edges of Sarah's mind. Would this newfound openness invite more significant challenges? What realities would emerge once walls were torn down? Suddenly, the ring of the phone shattered the spell. It was a number she didn't recognize, another twist in the story, another potential revelation waiting just beyond the horizon. With a quick glance at Maria and Emily, Sarah picked it up, her heart racing again for an entirely different reason. What lay behind that unknowing voice? Would it provide clarity, or throw them further into disarray? Uncovering what was on the other end meant stepping back into the unknown, a familiar territory she needed to confront once more. Sarah hesitated for a moment, the phone pressed against her ear, her heart pounding. The voice on the other end sounded uncertain yet earnest. Is this Sarah Henderson? Yes, it is, she responded, trying to smooth out the nervous tremor in her voice. Hi, this is Thomas from the HR department at the Parker Group. I hope this isn't a bad time. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. The Parker Group was the company where she had applied for a position, a role she had fantasized about since learning about the job opening. No, not at all. What can I help you with? We reviewed your application and would like to invite you for an interview this week. Does that work for you? His words fell like soft rain after a long drought, and Sarah almost felt giddy. Yes. Absolutely. When? She could barely contain her excitement. Wednesday at 10 a.m. Just ask for me when you arrive. I understand it's a competitive role, but we see potential in your application, he said. Thank you so much. Sarah stammered, her mind racing with the possibilities. This was her chance to pivot her career, her chance to reclaim her narrative of growth that had been stunted for so long. As she hung up the phone, a different sort of heaviness descended upon her. The exhilaration mingled with a sharp pang of uncertainty, awakening her insecurities. What if she couldn't meet their expectations? What if the same cycle of failure replayed itself? Maria and Emily were still present, gazing curiously at Sarah. She could see the anticipation flickering in their eyes, expecting her to share the good news. Sarah struggled inwardly, torn between wanting to celebrate and fearing she would jinx it. I just got off the phone with the Parker Group. They want me in for an interview, she declared finally, embracing the moment. Wow, that's amazing! Emily exclaimed, her youthful enthusiasm igniting a fire within Sarah. Maria's smile matched the enthusiasm, but there was an undertone of admiration that spoke volumes. What's it for? Maria asked gently, her tone wrapping around Sarah like a comforting shawl. A project manager role. I've always wanted to work in that field, Sarah replied, her lips curling into a smile. She paused, reflecting on the weight of that statement. It's a step I've longed for, but... Emily echoed, her brow furrowing slightly. I can't shake the feeling of doubt, Sarah admitted. What if I'm not capable enough? What if it's too much? With each word, she sensed the swell of fear rising within her. Emily shook her head. You're the strongest person I know. You've faced harder things than this. Thanks, sweetheart, Sarah replied, feeling warmth envelop her, yet still battling the internal storm. Maria joined in, you've learned from your mistakes, Sarah. This is your moment to embrace it. You've grown, you have every right to aim for great things. But their encouragement, while comforting, couldn't quiet the nagging voice inside her head, the one that had whispered doubt throughout her career. She closed her eyes momentarily, trying to drown it out. In that instant, she recognized something important. Her recent vulnerability had opened a world of potential for her and her daughter. The shared honesty she had encountered with Maria and Emily had forged a deeper bond, but it had also birthed a new kind of bravery within her that demanded action. "I need to prepare. I can do this," she declared firmly, sealing her determination like a promise. "I will embrace this challenge head-on." Suddenly, in the warmth of their kitchen, Sarah envisioned herself walking into that interview with a renewed sense of possibility. The weight of her expectations transformed into aspirations, and she felt something shift within her, a resolve forming alongside her desire for growth. As the conversation shifted to practical preparations, her mind buzzed with plans and strategies. Yet, deep down, she still wrestled with the immensity of this opportunity and the potential fallout of failure. "Mom." Emily's voice sliced through Sarah's thoughts. "What if you don't get it?" The question hung in the air, a stark reminder that the fear of disappointment loomed, no matter how far she had come. The bravado she felt crumbled slightly as she glanced at her daughter. Then, "I'll try again," Sarah answered, "but this time, I'll do it fearlessly." For the first time in a long while, she sensed an unwavering fire ignite within. The feeling was intoxicating, paired with a growing belief that perhaps this was the beginning of a journey she had been waiting to embark on, a journey towards realizing her own worth. But before she could savor this new resolve or prepare for the impending interview, the phone rang again, dragging her back to reality. She grabbed it, hoping it wasn't bad news, yet knowing that every call could lead her closer to or further from her goals. What now? She thought. Would it deride her newfound clarity or solidify her path further? A pulse of unsettled anticipation rippled through her as she answered. As Sarah answered the phone, a familiar voice greeted her, a former colleague, Jenna. "Hey, Sarah. I just heard from HR that they're looking to expand the team for the Parker project. You should reach out, I think they'll be thrilled to consider you." Her heart raced, excitement blending with anxiety. "I just learned they want me for an interview, Jenna." "I'm ecstatic, but so nervous," Sarah admitted, her voice quavering slightly. "You deserve this, Sarah. Remember, you've overcome so much. You're not the same person who was afraid to step outside her comfort zone," Jenna encouraged. "You've grown tremendously. This is your opportunity." With Jenna's words echoing in her ears, the unease that had gripped Sarah started to dissipate. She hung up the phone with invigorated determination. This was her moment to shine. Soon after, she realized how far she had come. The trembling doubts that once plagued her were now transfixed by the fire of belief igniting within. It no longer felt burdensome to confront the unknown. Grabbing her planner, she mapped out her preparation strategy for the interview with fervor. Each bullet point felt monumental, and she relished the idea of having an actionable plan. With the comforting sounds of Emily and Maria harmonizing through laughter in the background, Sarah reaffirmed her commitment to expansion, both personally and professionally. The echoes of her past self, the one shackled by fear, were growing fainter. As the week went on, the atmosphere in the house transformed. Maria flourished in her role, ushering joy into Emily's daily life and their collective dynamic. In moments of team study sessions and shared meals, Sarah felt connections deepening. Each laugh exchanged between them knitted a bond of trust that fortified her spirits. Finally, the day of the interview arrived. The sun streamed through the window, illuminating Sarah as she dressed confidently in a tailored outfit that made her feel empowered. Standing before the mirror, she couldn't help but notice the shift reflected in her eyes. The vulnerability she had once feared was now transformed into a fierce sense of authenticity. Only a few hours later, Sarah found herself seated in the corner office of the Parker Group, the atmosphere charged with possibility. Each question posed during the interview created a new opportunity for her to display her competence, allowing her to emerge from her cocoon of self-doubt. The conversation flowed effortlessly, her passion for project management illuminating every word. She felt connected to the team's mission in profound ways, and the rapport felt organic, as if they were all part of the same tapestry already intricately woven. "This is who I am. This is where I belong," she thought, affirming her belief in herself, her growth, and her contributions to the world. Hours later, by sheer luck or destiny, Sarah received that exhilarating email. she had been selected for the role as project manager at the Parker Group, everything felt surreal, her excitement mingled with an overwhelming sense of triumph. She called Emily into the living room. "I got the job," she shouted with joyous urgency. Emily's face lit up, and Maria embraced her exuberantly. The moment resonated through their interconnected lives, a harmonious celebration of trust and empowerment, the culmination of a journey that began with uncertainty and evolved into untold possibilities. As they reveled in the excitement, Sarah realized the next important lesson she had learned: growth was not just about professional advancement, it was about embracing vulnerability, nurturing trust, and building relationships that foster resilience. The safety she had desperately sought, rooted in fear, had transformed into a profound security born of connection. Finally, as the sun set, casting warm hues into their kitchen filled with laughter, Sarah reflected on her transformation. She had arrived at a pivotal chapter, one where her sense of self-dependence flourished alongside the intricate layers of their family dynamic, where they could propel each other forward. This was not merely a career triumph, but a personal metamorphosis, a celebration of the openness and courage it took to trust again. With each new step, she felt the unmistakable promise of the future unfurling before her, emboldening her to face whatever came next. And as Sarah looked at Emily and Maria, she realized they were no longer just housemates, they were partners in this unpredictable journey of life, an alliance shaped by shared dreams and mutual support. As their laughter filled the room, Sarah felt an unmistakable sense of fulfillment. She had conquered her fears, embraced trust, and built the foundation for a brighter future. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories of transformation and growth that spark inspiration. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, ensuring others can discover these uplifting narratives. Comment your reactions and theories about Sarah's incredible journey and the partnerships she forged along the way. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness the power of resilience and connection in overcoming life's obstacles.